I'm Stephanie Van Eeden. I'm a speech and language therapist. I was late to my research pathway and only finished my PhD in my early 50s. Although I had an interest in research all along from my training, we were encouraged to measure the effectiveness of our therapy, and I took this forward into my clinical work. In 2004, I joined one of the regional cleft lip and palate teams, and that's where my clinical interest is. These are very data-driven, audit-driven services with quite a medical hierarchy at the moment. And the focus from a speech and language therapy point of view was really on speech. What difference does the surgery make to a child's speech outcome? So the speech sounds that they make. Through my work in that and collecting the data and looking at it, I had this clinical question which kept coming up. We had about 40% of our children at age 5 weren't making progress, despite the fact they were having lots of specialist intervention for their speech. They weren't making progress with their speech. And when I looked at them, there were a lot of them that also had language problems. So they had difficulty processing what was being said to them or difficulties forming sentences. We know in the general population that speech and language are intertwined, but in cleft, we didn't seem to look at that. So this is what really drove me. And I had colleagues at the university who kept saying, do something about it, do something about it, do something about it. And then the opportunity to apply for the NIHR internship came along. And I was supported by my NHS trust to do that. And again, I said, right, I'm just going to answer this one question. I don't want to do a PhD. I just want to answer this question. I'm just going to do a PhD. Started the internship, saw what the NIHR could offer. So just like came out of that day one workshop going, I'm going to do a PhD. I then found actually within my NHS trust, there were a few more barriers than there had been when I initially said I wanted to go into research. When it looked like it was going to be a long-term thing, it became a little bit more difficult. Anyway, I pursued it. I got the fellowship, and my PhD was looking at language outcomes in children with cleft lip and palate and how that relates to their speech. Then I got to the end of my PhD and I thought, well, what now? Do I just go back into my clinical role? That opportunity to be what we would think of as a clinical academic wasn't there. Job came up at the university, so I made the sacrifice, one of the words that keeps coming up today, to give up my clinical work. And I went for a full-time job at Newcastle University. This was a difficult decision to make. I loved working with the families. I loved my clinical work. But the opportunities that it's given me are something else. It's opened up the research world amazingly, and it's allowed me to have a greater impact than I think I could have imagined. So not necessarily what my research has done, but the impact on people that I work with, in particular colleagues and students. So I now have 5 PhD students across speech therapy, surgery, and psychology, working on those more holistic outcomes and the impact on education and things like that. It's also allowed me to work on national projects and lead on PPI work, so working with the young people themselves and what they want, and that culminated in some young people coming to our annual conference this year and presenting what we're doing, but from their point of view, which was really impactful and fantastic. And I'm now hoping to get some postdoc money to carry on. So I suppose in summary, I think at the time I thought, have I made the right decision leaving the NHS and going into the university? But I don't have any regrets about the choice that I've made. But I do feel really, really strongly that my pathway into research should be a thing of the past. And AHPs should have the opportunities for real academic pathways. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come here today and share my story.